All right, let's do the head coaches tier list. I did my podcast of Kyle where I had the rankings, but sometimes I don't love rankings because people get too caught up in like, oh, why is this person at 7 when they should have been at 6? I like to separate them into tiers. I think that can kind of give more accurate representation of how I actually view these coaches. So without further ado, let's just get into it with Brian Callahan and the Tennessee Titans. I should set up my tiers first. I have elite, then helps win games, then wins games and loses games, meaning they're the reason why you win some games, but also why you lose some games. Unknown, and then I'm not convinced are the 5 tiers. I think I have to put Callahan in the I'm not convinced tier as of right now. You could argue he's unknown, but one year they were the worst team in football. Like, I don't think it was all his fault, but ultimately, I think that's just kind of where I have to have him right now. So, yeah, you then have with the Miami Dolphins, Mike McDaniel, who, again, I think does some really nice things. I think the X's and O's are fantastic, but ultimately, the results are the results, and this is a team that has consistently fallen apart towards the end of the year, year after year. Maybe that's just injury stuff, but I also think when you are a coach in South Florida, you kind of have to be like a rah-rah guy because, people might not want to fully, play for you. Maybe people are just there to kind of collect some money in a nice weather, low, no state income tax state, and then hang out there. I don't know if he has that raw aspect of him. So I'm not convinced as of right now, even though I think he's a brilliant X's and O's guy. We then have the Jets with Aaron Glenn, who I think I just got to put in the unknown. I mean, we haven't seen him coach yet. Really like him as a coordinator. He is a rah guy, but I haven't seen him coach yet, so I'm going to keep him there. Then Zach Taylor, who you could argue a lot of different things with Zach Taylor, because I do think that it's just kind of weird where I put the unknown tier here. I do feel like, I don't know if I guess I have to put him in the wins games and loses games, even though I guess really this is just, there's positives and negatives. Like, listen, he is a guy who has done some real, good things. Like, he helped develop Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. He coached in the Super Bowl. I also just don't think he's that great of a coach. I don't love the X's and O's that I usually see. The defensive coordinator hire stuff has worked. They've had success defensively. You have to give him credit for how well the defense was coached that Super Bowl run last year. I don't know what you could do as a defensive coordinator in that situation. But he's an offensive guy. I do think the offense was very good last year, but has been underwhelming in previous years. So, and they don't, the fact that they keep coming out of the gate slow, at a certain point, it's a trend. So, I don't know. There's some good qualities, but I think that's fair for him. We then have Kevin Stefanski, who I'm also going to kind of keep here. I mean, ultimately, the Browns lose a lot and lost a lot last year. But again, what was he kind of supposed to do in that situation? I don't know. I do think the X's and O's are good. I've never been blown away, even when he, wins Coach of the Year. I've never been blown away by his X's and O's, but I've always felt like they're pretty good. He always tends to have a pretty solid game plan for these games. So ultimately, the middle tier feels fair. Liam Cohen, a head coach that I'm interested in seeing what he'll do with Jacksonville. Thought his X's and O's were great in Tampa Bay and seemed to be a pretty good leader type as well. Obviously, there was that weird, how things kind of fell apart last year type of stuff. But ultimately, I think he's very good. So I'm gonna, I think he's a very good coordinator. We'll see how he goes as a head coach. Dan the Man Campbell, who is definitely a controversial head coach. I love the fourth down decision making stuff. I know not everyone does. I think it's great. I like his leadership abilities. I think everyone likes his leadership abilities, right? Like, the way that he was able to completely change the culture in Detroit is nothing short of spectacular. The biggest question I have with Dan Campbell is, throughout pretty much this entire run, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, two awesome, really smart X's and O's guys, were right around him to help out with that. Those guys are both gone now. We're going to really see who Dan Campbell is with the new hires. is this a part of the nucleus of the team, or when you lose Ben Johnson, is the offense going to kind of fall apart, or at least be worse, similar to how the Falcons took a pretty big step back once they lost Kyle Shanahan? I'm going to put him in helps win games for now. He's very close to the elite tier, but I'm going to kind of try and save that a little bit with the elite tier for now. So just going to put him in helps win games. And his division rival, Kevin O'Connell, is going to go in that same spot. Coaching in general last year, the X's and O's offense and defense were spectacular with Kevin O'Connell. The playoff disappointment was a real thing, but I kind of put that more on Darnold than Kevin O'Connell in the way he was kind of able to take a journeyman quarterback and get the most out of him. We'll see what he does when he gets to develop a quarterback he kind of handpicked with J.J. McCarthy. Todd Bowles of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers feels like the poster child for the wins games and loses games tier, because like he very much has games every year where you're like, man, Todd Bowles just figured it out. Like the Detroit Lions game last year, where he just had the perfect game plan to beat Ben Johnson. Played it to a T. They shut down the Lions offense and were able to win. And Goff didn't have his best game. Ben Johnson could have ran the ball more, all that stuff. But it was still an impressive job by Todd Bowles. And then he has some of these other games where you're just like, what the hell is this guy even thinking? Why is he playing this coverage over and over again when it's clearly not working? Like he has those types of games, but ultimately, hey, keeps winning the division. I think he's a good coach. He's closer to this tier than below, but I think this is a correct tier for him, although right now he is the best on that tier, I would say. Kyle Shanahan, again, not everyone's cup of tea. I get the Super Bowl stuff, although I think that's been overblown. Ultimately, I think he's the best offensive play caller in football, so I'm going to keep him in the elite tier. Does a very good job at getting good coordinators as well, good defensive coordinators as well. You could argue that he isn't always perfect at the rah-rah stuff, and it's the fourth quarter Super Bowl stuff is kind of where people have criticisms. But again, I just think what he brings to the table with the offensive play calling is so valuable that's where I'd have him. On the other end of the spectrum, Raheem Morris, who, quite frankly, I just thought there were too many head scratchers last year with the Atlanta Falcons. He is someone who, I don't know, I just felt like not playing Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix in the preseason. Maybe that was out of his hands and there's nothing he could do. But if that was his decision, he's the head coach, I'm going to ultimately have to blame or criticize him for that. It was a bizarre decision. A quarterback who's rusty coming off an injury and a quarterback who's never played in the NFL, both of them struggled when they first started playing. Cousins week 1 against Pittsburgh, and then Penix, who actually played pretty well when he came in, but still had some rookie mistakes. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand why he waited so long to make the decision to go with Michael Penix. Ultimately, the defense definitely took a step back last year. So, yeah, I have to keep him in the I'm not convinced here. Again, guys are going to make mistakes and get better. It's his first year with the Falcons. He has been a head coach previously. I didn't hate the hire when it happened. I'm not convinced right now. On the other end of the spectrum, John Harbaugh, who, again, you could argue the playoff. I think it's fair to say the Ravens have underwhelmed in postseason games, and quite frankly, just haven't played their best football in the postseason in recent history, and you have to put some of that on the head coach, but he helps you win games. The teams are always prepared. They always find little edges throughout the court, and that's not just him. That's the ownership, front office, the coordinators as well. It's all of it, but he's the head coach. He deserves a lot of credit. John Harbaugh, definitely a very good coach. For the Bears, we have Ben Johnson, who I think is going to be really good. I think he's going to work with the Bears. I think he's a great X's and O's guy. And I think, hey, being around Dan Campbell, you have to have learned a thing or two about leadership. I get part of that is you just, it's just innate, and we'll see what happens. But, I think he's going to be very good. He is an unknown. I have to put him in this tier. I created this tier, so I'm going to keep him there. But ultimately, I think there's real potential that this could go very well. We didn't have Brian Schottenheimer, who, I don't know, I guess I got to put in the unknown. It could work out. I didn't really understand his hire. It felt like he was hired just because he was kind of around, but ultimately, he was hired. We'll see how it works out. DeMeco Ryans, I'm fine with putting him in the middle tier for now. I mean, first year was electric with him, right? The offense takes this huge jump. Looks like the X's and O's there are going great. Defense, both years, has been very good with Houston. But last year, just quite frankly, the Texans' offense didn't take that next step that we were hoping it would. And if anything, maybe even took a small step back. A lot of people have criticized the offensive coaching for that, which, Ryans is not a offensive guy, but you hire the offensive guy, so it still is to some degree, should be blamed on you. And a lot of times for a defensive head coach, it comes down to how well do you hire the offensive guys, right? That's just part of your job. That being said, they did play very well in the playoffs in back-to-back years. You have to give them credit for that. So a lot of good here with Ryans, but there's enough bad to keep him just in the middle tier for now. We then have Shane Steichen, who for the Colts again, has yet to make the playoffs, although has, I think, overperformed with the talent that his team has had, and shown that hey, they've been competent every single year. Struggled with the quarterback stuff, and I think a lot of people criticized how he went with Joe Flacco. What are you getting out of Joe Flacco? But I kind of understood why he did that. Like the Richardson thing just wasn't working, and we're still worth trying to make the playoffs if you could. But then that blew up in his face, and he had to go back to Richardson. It was the whole thing. But yeah, I'm still fine with putting him in the middle tier. Then you have Sean McVay, who another great year out of McVay. McVay's won a Super Bowl, of course. We know he's an elite X's and O's guy and does a good job hiring defensive coordinators too. At one point was like the best at it. Maybe has cooled off a bit, but still is really good at it. So yeah, he's an elite coach. And Jim Harbaugh, I'm going to keep him in the elite coach tier as well. I think there's two elite coaches in LA. I think that what he was able to do to turn that team around just immediately was unbelievable. Again, we all kind of looked at that Charger team saying, yeah, they're good, but Herbert's good, but there's nothing else here. And no, turns out that he was able to find diamond in the rough there. So yeah, I was very impressed with that. Pete Carroll, I'm going to also put in the middle tier. It's going to end up being kind of a bigger tier, but ultimately with Pete Carroll, I just feel like he is someone that he's going to be competent, which is what the Raiders need. Someone who can just help build a culture in that locker room. He should be able to do that. I think it's also fair to question some of the has the game passed him by stuff, which was already a question when he was in his last years in Seattle, and kind of why he ultimately didn't keep that job. But I still think there's enough good there to keep him in this tier. I wouldn't put him further down than that. Dan Quinn, I'm going to put in the helps win games. Quite frankly, last year was awesome by him. In previous years with Atlanta, I never was fully impressed with him. Even the year they went to the Super Bowl, I always kind of felt like that was Kyle Shanahan's X's and O's, which, hey, he hired Shanahan, right? But still, I was never that impressed. Although it is interesting, Dan Quinn's known for being aggressive. What was the criticism of the Falcons in that 28-3 Super Bowl? They were too aggressive. We all blame Shanahan, but clearly Dan Quinn has some of that DNA as well, and it worked. With Washington, of course, part of it is hitting on Daniels, which has been awesome. But hey, he's the coach. He deserves credit for helping develop that. So yeah, I'll keep him in help swing games now just because it's only 1 year. But if he does this for a couple more years, he could get into that elite tier, which I never thought. I think we put him last year. I would have put him on the bottom tier of this tier rankings. Now he's near the top. Goes to show that guys can get better, right? Maybe I was wrong, or maybe he just got better. Maybe he just learned from his mistakes. Maybe it's that last one, because he certainly, and I remember him talking about when he went to Dallas, how he's like, yeah, my defense has gotten stale. I need to get better at this. So hey, credit to someone who never stops learning, and they'll, it's impressive stuff. And then, Andy Reid, how do you not put him in the elite tier with his resume and everything? And I actually thought he was great last year. Like the X's and O's, without a really good receiving core at all last year with all the injuries and stuff, and no left tackle basically all season, and your right tackle is Jawan Taylor, they were still able to have success consistently offensively. They were top 10 offense last year in terms of points per drive. They were very efficient. They just ran those long drives, so that overall numbers looked worse because of it. But yeah, Andy Reid, he's great. We all know Andy Reid's great. Kellen Moore of the Saints, again, you have to put in the unknown category. I've never been blown away by Kellen Moore, although he has had some good moments for sure, including against my favorite team, Tampa Bay, when with the Dallas Cowboys, he dominated us in the Super Bowl with some really good X's and O's. Ultimately, though, again, how will he be as a head coach remains to be seen. He's totally effective X's and O's guy, a good one, not an elite one like a Ben Johnson type of guy, but does that well. I think it'll come down to the other head coaching stuff that'll sort of make or break him. We then have Brian Daboll here, who is a question mark, and you could certainly argue could be in. I think obviously he can't. Actually, can I just put him in the unknown? I think I'm gonna just put him in the unknown tier because ultimately, even though that was kind of made for guys who haven't coached yet, I still think it's fair to put him here because I do think he's done some nice things with the Giants. I really do. He's had some very good moments with them, but you just can't help but think about look at the record and say, well, they keep losing. I think he's a good coach. I think he does some nice things with them. That one playoff year was fantastic. I don't really hate them keeping him, but also you do keep having these awful seasons, and at a certain point, maybe the numbers are the numbers. I don't know. So I'll keep him there. Nick Sirianni, who, listen, the guy's won a Super Bowl, been to another. You got to at least put him in this tier. I remember after they went to the Super Bowl, I put him in the elite tier. I was really impressed with him after that year. And a lot of people were like, you're kind of crazy here, Jackson. There's too many negatives here. And I didn't fully see it that way. As for Mike Tomlin, I think in many years past, I would have put him in the elite tier. I think it's fair to finally dock him a tier at this point. The teams are always very well prepared. You can't take that away from them. And they do always have winning seasons. That still matters. That's still, in my opinion, at the very least, very impressive. But it is fair to start to say okay, the offensive X's and O's haven't always been great. And even the defensive X's and O's aren't world breaking or anything. It's just they tend to execute very well, right? So listen, you deserve credit for always having a prepared team, but I think it's fair to, after kind of how things have gone late in the year after year, put him in this tier. You then have Sean Payton, who, again, very good coach, really good X's and O's guy, does have his team well prepared. I think I'm willing to go to the helps win games tier as well. It's hard to, again, I think the argument wouldn't be him being lower. The argument would be him being higher, because definitely very good. We then have Matt LaFleur, who, again, you could try and talk me into the elite tier. I don't think I go that far, but he's very good. Again, another fantastic X's and O's guy. I think the knock against him is he hasn't always nailed defense, which I think is fair. The teams also haven't always played great in the playoffs, although they have at times, right? So those are the knocks against him. Fair enough. But every time I watch the Packers, I'm just constantly blown away by how well his schemes are and how good the X's and O's are. So that's why I have him there. We're then going to have Dave Canales with the Carolina Panthers, who I think I'm going to kind of, similar to how I treated Brian Daboll, I think I'm going to just put him in the unknown tier. Listen, clearly a quarterback guru, clearly great at getting the most out of a quarterback, but that's only one part of the battle, and being a head coach, you have to do so many different things, and I just have no idea what he's going to be with the other stuff just yet. I don't hold the bad season against him because it was Carolina, they weren't very good, and he did do his job, which was get the most out of Bryce Young, but it's difficult to fully go too much more than that at this point. So Jonathan Gannon of the Arizona Cardinals. Listen, I thought on paper last year that offense was going to be pretty good, and the defense was going to be a mess. It turns out offense was pretty good, and the defense was okay, maybe not great. Fine, serviceable, right? Despite not having the talent on paper, they've gotten a lot more talent on paper. We'll see how well it works out. But as a whole, I like what he's been able to do. I don't think I can quite put him into the helps win games tier just yet, but wins games and loses games. I think he's shown that he can. The knock is a fair knock, which is in the two most important games of the year against Seattle, they lost both games, and you would have loved to win one of those games. But ultimately, I think the Cardinals overperformed. We thought they were going to take 2 or 3 steps forward. Turns out last year they just took 1 step forward, but I think it could be good this year, and I think I could see myself bumping him up a tier when it's all said and done. We then have Sean McDermott, who I'm going to also put in the wins games and loses games tier. definitely did a great job at building a winning culture with Buffalo. He deserves credit for that because it was not a good situation when he got there. And I've defended him in the past, but ultimately, like, it is what it is. He can't figure out Kansas City, and like Kansas City's beating everybody, right? But the way that Kansas City beats his defense year after year is different than the way that they beat every other defense. Like, they've just dominated that matchup in the postseason. Buffalo has not had an answer, and ultimately, like, you're a defensive guy, you got to figure something out. I'm not saying you have to slow him down. Mahomes is Mahomes, but sometimes there's just guys wide open in these big games, and that just can't happen. So, well, it's maybe not fair to fully knock him just for that. I'm going to do it anyway. Sometimes it can be unfair, I guess. Let's go to Mike McDonald with the Seahawks, who I liked what he did in his first season. I thought he played pretty, coached pretty well. Like, Seahawks had a solid season. We'll see if they can build off of it. I still think it's just an unknown. Like, I still think that I need more information. It was a fine season. They were a fine team, and they had a fine season. Like, I need more information right now before I can go too far. And then Mike Vrabel, who, I like Mike Vrabel. I think he did a lot of good stuff with the Tennessee Titans, and I think that he'll do good stuff with the Patriots. So I think he helps you win games. Like, he's, maybe not the X's and O's guru that you would like, but when it comes to just the leadership qualities, like, he has all of them. So, I'm going to put him in that tier. So, those are my rankings. That is my tier list. Let me know in the comments below. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Always love hearing from y'all. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.